surfing in the southwest. So let's start the day with a bit of a panel session. And so I just want to call up to the stage Toby Hicks, Adam Myers, and Richard Todd Hunter. So this panel session is about, in relation to yesterday, we held a COSEC seminar downstairs. These guys are from some of the companies who sponsored and participated. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to have a chat to them about some of the topics that were discussed yesterday and maybe can help you all with some of your investing and when you're reading ASX announcements and whatnot. So just start with Toby, just introduce yourself and a bit of a rundown on where you work at and what you do, and move towards Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Jackson. Look, Toby Hicks, I'm one of the partners at Steiner Price Pagan lawyers in Perth, and we're obviously very active as legal advisors to a large number of ASX listed companies, and so in that work and in that capacity, there's lots of things that we see that are probably relevant to investors and who might wonder why certain things get done, why certain announcements get made to ASX, what they mean. There's lots of forms that get announced to ASX that as investors you might wonder why. So, happy to run through those sorts of things.
Cool. Adam?
Adam Myers, partner at BDO in Perth. So I do independent experts reports for takeovers, company valuations, and also investigating accountants reports for IPOs. This is certainly a space that we're very active in, and come across Toby and Richard quite a lot with our client base.
Richard Todd Hunter, National Head of Mining, Gallagher Insurance Brokers. Gallagher's a global insurance brokerage firm. I head up a specialist practice for resources companies from pre-IPO privates all the way to multi-billion market cap mining houses, and we take part in all areas of insurance and risk management, program design, and act as in-house risk management for our clients.
Okay, we'll start with, so we've got insurer, accountant, lawyer, got it all covered, because as investors, I'll start with you, Toby, should we just take for granted that we've got the ASX and we've got ASIC and they should be regulating the companies that we're investing in, so we shouldn't have to worry about, as an investor, looking into the legalities associated with these companies? Or do you think there's still some responsibility as a shareholder to have a bit of an understanding on what the company's participating in, what type of industry, and whether or not they could be chancing themselves with some of the litigation laws associated with the listing rules?
Yeah, I think the number one rule for investors is only ever invest in companies that you're comfortable with and that you're comfortable and that you understand the business. To summarise the regime, the legal regime, that the ASX market and the stock market works on the premise and the assumption that every investor in that market has access to the same information. So sometimes we get comments or we hear comments from investors that, oh, well, the brokers knew about that first, or, clearly the insiders were involved in this because they bought these shares before I got a chance to, or whatever. So the general principle upon which the market operates is that when a share is trading, that the market should be able to assume that all material information that is relevant to you as investors and to the broader market is available to you and to the market. So yes, you should always invest with the assumption that you know everything everybody else knows. Quite clearly, if you're closer to a company, whether it's BHP or it's a small cap exploration company, you can get a better sense of whether the sentiment internally is positive or negative, but you should be able to invest with the assumption that you have access to the same information that everybody else has.
And Adam, from the accounting point of view, as shareholders, there's obviously the quarterly report that comes out, there's the annual report, there's the half-year financials. Got any tips for our self-funded retirees? What do you look for? Because cash at bank is normally one that I go to, particularly with the speculative stocks that I'm invested in. But what you probably need to also consider is forecasts of expenditure and whether or not that cash at bank is going to deplete pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's fairly crucial. Particularly, after hearing Canaccord yesterday, the market is a little bit patchy. We do still see secondary raisings, but it could be a little bit tighter for a while. So you'd want to look at this time of year, what is the cash position? How many quarters of expenditure will that cover? Making sure that the companies can get through to that next sort of market opening and not have to raise cash when they're in a really vulnerable position. You sort of need to start raising capital when you don't need it. If you're desperate for capital, then you're at the behest of the market and it can get quite expensive. So certainly look for the longevity of how many quarters they've got available. Make sure they've got a good program of expenditure coming up. Have they got drilling programs? Are they reinterpreting results? What activity have you got there that links to driving share value?
And Richard, I guess from an investor point of view, the insurance is probably not as important, but we do have some non-executive directors and managing directors sitting in the room. From their point of view, directors' insurance, pretty important, I'd assume, in this day and age?
Most certainly, and also important for the shareholders to understand that the directors are covered in that regard. The complication, of course, for the shareholder is that there's confidentiality provisions in directors' policies. So they're not allowed to disclose limits and premiums, etc., of the coverage. Most annual reports will have a note in there to say that there is insurance in place, but there's not allowed to be any details in there. But to the point as well, further to the business understanding whether there is an insurance program in place to protect assets and cover, whether the balance sheet can sustain a catastrophic failure of a processing plant or something like that, when you're looking at operating concerns, is really important.
And obviously Vertical Events RIU is one of the most popular conference organising groups going around. So we have a very diversified group of companies that participate. They could be exploring or developing in all parts of the world. As shareholders, do you think there's, we'll start with you, Toby, there's some requirement to consider the location where the exploration or development is taking place? Because Leo Lithium at the moment could be one example that some shareholders in that company are getting pretty nervous.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to what the purpose of investing is. There's probably ways, in my experience in the market, there's two ways people invest. They invest because they believe in the story of the company and what it could become. And with exploration companies, that's often that dream vision of greenfields discovery through to mine production. And I'm investing in company X today because I want to be holding shares when they're pouring gold or they're selling spodumene or shipping iron ore from that mine. And there's other people who invest because they know something is hot at the moment, and if they put in something at 5 cents and it goes to 10 cents, then they will have, had a significant win. It goes back to, I think, and I'm not a stockbroker, but you do need to understand where assets are located and what some of the challenges are with some of those assets. And I probably don't want to refer to jurisdictions in particular jurisdictions in case I offend any sort of the companies that are present here today. But, mining gold in Kalgoorlie is probably infinitely easier than mining gold in some West African country where there's threats of coups and military juntas and these sorts of things. So, mining lithium in one jurisdiction will be different because of environmental issues associated with that jurisdiction than it will be mining it somewhere else. So that does become the responsibility of the investor as well, to understand the jurisdiction, I think, in where the company is operating when you're making those investment decisions.
I guess I could jump in on that as well. And I think if you look at where a company is going to a region where there is some sort of tension, there can be some great assets there. It's only natural to follow the quality assets. The key then really is looking at what is the management team like. Does the management have a track record of getting approvals? Have they been seen to be doing the right things? Have they built a relationship with that country? It's not to say that it's foolproof, because you will have some changes to government. You know, you might have a mines minister who comes to power who decides that he's going to throw out everything that his predecessor had done. That's a very difficult situation to deal with. But then you look at, you know, can the company stay, rebuild those relationships? So having that track record and showing that they're trying to align with the country and create some benefit, you know, it can be a longer process, but it doesn't mean that you know, you will lose out straight away.
And Jackson, I might step in as well. We make the automatic assumption about resource companies when we're talking about these sorts of things. But as we've seen here this week, we've got a variety of companies. So technology companies are no different, right? If you are looking to invest in early stage technology companies, it's incumbent to know and important to understand the life cycle of a biotech company or a technology company in terms of revenue generation when you're making those investments. Because the difficult thing with technology companies and biotechnology companies, very similar to exploration companies, is the possibilities sound so exciting, but the pathway to those possibilities can be really challenging. And I think that way, depending on, regardless of what you're looking to invest in, critical to understand the position from A to B for that company and how they get there.
And Richard, ESG, it's a pretty important component to the listing rules and ASX listed companies. From an insurance point of view, just as important?
It's certainly becoming that. One of the things I touched on during my session in the COSEC afternoon yesterday was a lot of global insurance companies, particularly out of Europe. The Americans aren't quite as hot on this, but there's a huge movement away from any type of thermal coal. New projects are just not getting insured. And then there's also a lot of scrutiny on, you know, D&O insurers making sure that companies have ESG policies and having robust policies, but also living through them. It's not enough to just have, you know, a link on your website that says this is a policy. There needs to be some evidence that that policy is being followed. And companies we're going to find ourselves in a position, I think, in the near future where companies will struggle to get insurance if they're not picking up that end of the bargain.
Toby,
Yes.
Adam, chime in if you've got...
I was going to say, we were really fortunate to have James Rowe from the ASX in the room yesterday, and certainly an area where ASX and ASIC have got a lot of focus. So they're looking at statements companies are making, looking at, you know, what they're terming greenwashing. And if a company does that, it's seen as misleading, and they will look to fine the companies. And what they really want to see is, you know, if you've made a statement about, you know, a future target around sustainability or you know, emissions, you know, do you have a reasonable basis for making that statement? Is there a program that's achievable that you could be on that path? If you just make a bland statement about, well, this is our target, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, but you can't actually, you know, if it's a process that hasn't been developed yet, they're going to say, well, hang on, you've just made that statement to ramp the share price, and the fines are pretty decent at the moment. So it's certainly a space where the compliance is catching up a little bit. So you'll see a little bit more activity in that space.
Yeah, I wouldn't have anything to add that's particularly meaningful to what the others have said. I think understanding what ESG is important. ESG is not just environmental. It's other elements and aspects as well, but where we see it the most and where we see the regulators stepping in is obviously when people are making environmental or green credentials about their company, and they're doing that to get attention or to sort of promote themselves over others, and then the regulators are looking at those questions and wondering whether or not that's true.
We've obviously, there's been a lot of commentary, particularly from the keynotes, about the challenges that the ASX environment is going through at the moment. Each of you, I'd imagine, in your different roles would have been unbelievably busy during 21 and into 22, when we had probably the most ASX Resources IPOs that they've ever experienced in a calendar year. Give some reflection on the current market conditions from each of yours in relation to the amount of work coming through and where you see it hopefully picking up in the near term.
Yeah, I think and I don't the statistic may not be completely accurate, but it won't be far off. I think in 2021, 22, we acted on 70 IPOs within our law firm. So 70 out of something like 150 on the ASX that year. So that activity has completely evaporated. But what we're seeing now is a lot of secondary capital raisings. So the market has changed. And I guess anyone who's been involved in the market for a long time understands that it moves in cycles, and it sucks to be in a down cycle, but you can learn a lot from what opportunities you can take when things are down. But yeah, the market keeps moving, right? So even though IPO activity is down and there may not be new companies to invest in at IPO stage, there will be companies to invest in that are at a different stage, that are doing a different, maybe doing a new capital raising, maybe it's just a chance to buy. So again, I'm not a market expert, but I've been around the fringe of the market in a legal capacity for a long period of time. I think the constant message is just to understand the market keeps moving and the cycles keep moving, and that's just always something to keep in the back of your mind.
One of the things we're seeing, similar to Toby, we're working on probably 2 to 3 IPOs a month in those years, and that work is all but dried up. But what we're seeing at the moment, we're being kept quite busy with a lot of M&A activity. Unfortunately, there's been a few projects that have been put into mothballs or gone into VA, which has obviously caused a few problems for some, but it's also presenting an opportunity for others. So it's a swings and roundabouts kind of situation. And I think that there's going to be opportunity through that space over the next few years.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree that the IPO activity's dried up. We've got some companies that are speaking to us about, trying to push the button in February next year. So they're getting us lined up to start doing the work sort of late December, early January to make that happen. So people do, I think some of the companies think there is a window of opportunity opening up next year. And I think that sort of reflects Canaccord's views that, look, it's not going to be great, but it still could be okay. So we'll see how that market opens up post Australia Day. And then I think the main thing we're seeing is M&A activity. A lot of inquiries about potential reports, etc. Particularly in the gold space. I think there's going to be a consolidation of assets where people are looking at how can we run a mill more efficiently, how do we get costs under control. There has been a bit of cost pressure for some producers. I think they're looking at how do they optimise their asset base. So certainly look at regional plays, look at consolidation of operating assets. There certainly could be opportunity for value there as well.
Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. There was a lot. Just one quick question, because we've got to move on to the first presenter.
With insurance, why the confidentiality agreements? Aren't we allowed to know as investors what insurance companies?
So the confidentiality is on the directors and officers' liability insurance. So the idea is that it's not to be known, so that it can't be relied upon. So whether it's basically done in order to prevent frivolous actions from coming about, and it's protecting the insurers as well as the directors.
Righto, thanks, guys. We'll pass it on to Chrissy, but if you've got any particular questions from either Toby, Adam or Richard, they actually have a table out the front, so you can have a chat to them over morning tea and or lunch. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, fellas. All right, lovely to see so many of you who have managed to get up early and make your way in here this morning. I was having a look at my notes from last year, and on this day last year, it was a nice warm 33 degrees on this day last year. So it's a bit of a change. We've got 10-degree difference. I went out for a bit of a little walk on the beach this morning, and there were a number of our presenters out there, and there's not many in the room, so I can talk out of school, and they all went out last night and they had a few drinks together, because they don't get that many chances to get together. So some of them are a little bit seedy today, so just be kind when you're speaking with them, because they may be speaking a little bit slower, but that's good, because it means you might be able to get a little bit more information out of them than you normally would. They might not be quite as on the ball with holding back. Now we've got 19 opportunities today, 19 great opportunities. 18 of them are resources-based companies, And the very last one, I think I mentioned this to you, a number of you yesterday, just the way the program is worked out is Little Green Farmer. Were you anyone in the room yesterday when I was talking about the Dementia and Alzheimer's conference that I hosted last week? So I hosted the National Alzheimer's Conference last week, and there was some really interesting stuff in there about cannabis oils and treatment for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. I think it's really, really interesting. So even if you've got other things to do today and you're back this afternoon, they're on at 3:15. I think they're really worthwhile coming to see, just to hear what's being done in that space. So we're going to start off this morning in one of Toby's preferred locations, in a Tier 1 location where we don't have to worry about the government or anything else, although Joe Bjelke-Petersen used to have a few issues over there, but he's not there anymore. So we're going to Queensland to start off. Queensland Pacific Minerals, who are aiming to process EV battery minerals up in sunny Townsville. They've recently inked a nice little land rights deal earlier this year. Look at this happy fellow as he comes down. You got yourself a $5 million grant from the government, did you not, to help them look for gas production and their project ambitions as well. So this young fellow here is Johnny Khoo. He's the General Manager of Corporate Development, and despite the baby face looks, he has got a string of achievements behind his name, which are quite impressive, which you can talk to him about later, but let's hear what's happening in Queensland and up in Townsville. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Chrissy. Morning, everyone. Queensland Pacific Metals, what are we? A vertically integrated advanced manufacturer of essential battery chemicals. There's two pillars of our business. The first pillar of our business is the tech project, Townsville Energy Chemicals Hub. This project actually does the opposite of what Australian resources industry always gets criticised for. So, we get criticised for digging up our precious dirt, sending it overseas for all the value add to happen, whether it's in China, Japan, Korea, US, anywhere. What we actually do, we'll import high-grade nickel laterite ore from New Caledonia. We'll bring it into Townsville in a long-established supply chain, and we'll do all the advanced manufacturing in Australia. Primarily, we're here to produce nickel and cobalt for the battery sector. And this project is going to sell our offtake to General Motors, LG and POSCO. These are world-class customers, absolutely tier 1. And what we're most proud about is that they're also shareholders of the company. So the Koreans came on board first a few years ago. They invested US 15 into the company, and they took 2/3 of our offtake for the first 7 years. And about this time last year, we brought General Motors on board. They came on in a $100 million equity commitment, of which about $25 million has already come into the company. And they will buy our nickel and cobalt for the life of the project. The other important facet of the tech project and why we've been able to attract this caliber of off-taker and shareholder is, our ESG credentials are literally off the charts. Our carbon output is actually negative 1 million tonnes every year. So when we'll be up and running, we will reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere by 1 million tonnes and simultaneously produce, essential metals for the EV sector. The other thing that's also unique about our flow sheet is we have absolutely zero waste. So, again, we as the mining industry, we get pillared for our tailings dams and those sorts of things. We actually extract all the valuable metals from our ore. So we don't also produce the nickel and cobalt, but we also produce hematite and we also produce magnesia and some other co-products. And we recycle 99% of the acid that we use in our process. And so what's left over is an inert residue, which is actually suitable for engineered landfill. And in Townsville, it's a flood-prone area. There's plenty of areas that need a bit of fill. So really unique, just absolutely no waste for this project. The second pillar of our business, as an advanced manufacturer, we need a big source of energy, and our chosen energy is gas. And recently we established a company called QPM Energy, and that's just recently acquired a producing gas asset known as the Moorumba project. I'll talk more about it later, but effectively this project will give us all the gas that we need to run the tech project. But most importantly, this is an unbelievable standalone business It's absolutely transformational for the company. I'm pleased to say, we had our first revenue received in the door just a few weeks ago in the bank account. Nice to see revenue coming in from a customer as opposed from shareholders and whatnot. And look, most of all, in 12 months' time, we're forecasting this thing to be generating EBITDA annualized of about $60 million a year. So we're really, really excited about this as a standalone business. Just quick bit of history about the company, and the management team's been really, we're proud of what we've achieved. Management and directors are all major shareholders of the company, so we feel the pain of the recent share price movements, but we believe we're in an unbelievable position to set the company up for growth and deliver shareholder value. So, we were listed late 2019, in a backdoor listing. And along the way, we feel that we've continually added value by delivering transformational transactions for the company. So as you can see, we brought on LG and POSCO. We've gone through our scoping study and our feasibility work and those sorts of things. We brought on General Motors as well. And then we've also completed the acquisition of the gas project. So, a constant steady stream of value-adding transactions that we've been able to pull off over time. Just quickly back onto the tech project. Quite simply, the ore comes into Townsville Port. We truck it about 40 kilometres south to our project site out in Lansdowne. This is an ideal location for advanced manufacturing and industrial activity. We're fully permitted, so everything is in place. And this area is well supported by infrastructure. So we've got a water pipeline, gas pipeline, ability to connect into the grid. Really, it has all the pillars of what you need for advanced manufacturing. Everyone always asks me, why don't we build this plant in New Caledonia? But quite simply, you haven't got the skilled labour, you haven't got the energy supply. Just sitting in Townsville, major industrial city, so much skilled labour and industrial services, really is an ideal location for this project. About a year ago, we released the results of a feasibility study. We're looking to produce about 16,000 tonnes of nickel a year and 1,700 tonnes of cobalt at full production. Project will generate very, very strong earnings. Stage 1, $500 million a year of EBITDA, and stage 2, a simple doubling of that. Sorry, technologies are... here we go. No worries. So this is a big project, right? It's we're not shying away from this. Nickel laterite projects aren't cheap to build. This capital of this project will be $2 billion. And first thing everyone asks is, how are you going to fund it? And we know as a management team what we're up against here and the challenges, but we're giving it the best damn shot we can. We've made significant progress on our debt, so we're up to $1.4 billion of indicative committed debt. This is a project where nickel is essential for the EV sector, and government funding is right behind us. So from Australia, we've got NAIF and EFA sitting there for $500 million of indicative commitments. We've got Export Development Canada, who actually increased their commitment from $200 million to $400 million because after doing a bit of DD on the project and whatnot, they really loved what they saw. They loved our ESG credentials. They loved our customers and what we stand for. And we've got a lot of equipment coming out of Germany. So we've got the German banks, Euler Hermes and KfW, providing traditional export financing for the German equipment that's going to come out for this project. So the debt is progressing very nicely. We're targeting to have it in place, credit-approved term sheets by the middle of next year. And that leaves us with an equity plug, and something that we need to solve as a company. General Motors, as part of their $100 million commitment, will deliver about $70 million when we get to final investment decision. We are a significant investment project in Queensland. We're the first company to receive this status, and we're working with the Queensland government on potential funding. Obviously, there's federal government funding, which we'll no doubt put our hands up for with the NRF and NAIF. And we've also got SMT, who's one of our ore suppliers out of New Caledonia. They participated in a recent capital raising as their initial investment, and they're looking to put in a more significant investment as we get to FID. So that's the first pillar of our business, the tech project. As you can see, we've done an absolutely significant amount of engineering work, and that's been undertaken by our lead engineers, Hatch. To date, we've probably spent about $80 million on this. So this is, we're really leaving no stone unturned technically to make sure that this project gets funded. So quickly, QPM Energy and the Moranbah Gas Project. The Moranbah Gas Project's located in the Bowen Basin of Australia. It is, the premier coking coal region of Australia. Effectively, there's the North Queensland gas pipeline, which runs from the Bowen Basin straight past our eastern boundary. And we acquired the only commercial producing asset. This asset's been in production since 2004. It was owned by Arrow and AGL. And we managed to acquire the business. Financial close was about 5 weeks ago. It's going at about 10 petajoules per annum at the moment. So that actually makes us the 6th largest domestic gas producer on the ASX. And we've got a pathway for serious growth. It's got established customers. So 7 petajoules of that production goes to Dyno Nobel, subsidiary of Intertek Pivot, and their ammonium nitrate plant. The balance of that gas goes to Townsville Power Station, which is a 240 megawatt gas turbine in Townsville, and we actually control that power station and all the electricity that's produced by it. So I said at the start, this is a fantastic standalone business, and it all comes down to this ability to generate electricity, which will generate revenue. The pipeline itself, we've got it fully packed with gas at the moment, and it can actually run the power station for 30 hours continuously. So we talk about batteries. We actually say this is the biggest battery on the east coast of Australia by way of power generation. What makes this project unique and what adds to our carbon credentials? These are all the coal mines in this region. And right now, with their gas, they can't really do much about it, but they need to degas ahead of mining for safety and whatnot. And these are some of the gassiest coal mines in the world. And what actually happens right now in an underground coal mine, they need to degas before the longwall comes through, and that gas gets burnt off and flared straight into the atmosphere. It's actually quite terrible, to be brutally honest. What we're actually coming and doing, we actually collect this waste gas. We have the only compression infrastructure in the region, and we've got control of capacity in the pipeline. Put that gas through the pipeline, send it either to our tech project ultimately, but in the interim, Townsville Power Station and other industrial customers in Townsville. So, we're effectively taking waste and putting it to good use. And there's, recently the safeguard mechanism reforms, which means that all these coal miners who are some of our major carbon polluters, they actually need to reduce their carbon emissions by 5% every year. And the only way really is to get their gas off-site, and we'll happily take it and put it to good use. It's just some pictures of the assets. As I said, there's been over $1 billion spent on this project since 2004. So unbelievable acquisition for us and a real game changer. Just look, this effectively shows the business model. A bit of gas goes to Intertek Pivot. Most of the gas goes to Intertek Pivot. The rest of our gas goes to Townsville Power Station. We'll be able to generate about 600,000 megawatts an hour. And this is guidance that we recently published, as I said, in 12 months' time, looking to do annualized EBITDA of about $60 million a year by increasing gas production and generating more electricity and gas sales. We're pretty proud of this. Since acquiring the asset, we've managed to increase gas production. This is actually the wrong slide, but come see me and I'll show you the slide. But effectively, in 5 weeks, we've increased production by 10%, and we've got a pathway to actually increase production even further. I'll just go back to my very first slide, which I didn't present, and where we sit. Company right now is market cap of $130 million. Our pro forma cash balance is about $60 million, leaving us with an enterprise value of $70 million. So we really feel that we're very attractively priced right now. Challenge anyone else to find a company that's forecasting to do EBITDA of $60 million a year in 12 months' time, trading at this sort of enterprise value. I'm around today till about 1 o'clock before I've got to head back to Brisbane. But if you want to find out more about either of our projects, the company itself, come around, have a chat, ask some questions, and I look forward to seeing you. Thanks, everyone.
Well done, John. Thank you. And you handled that dodgy old clicker there with great aplomb. Hello to those of you who've just joined us up the back. What have you been doing, team? Just hanging out the back, having a few pastries, taking it casually in today. Now, actually talk about taking it casually to get here. The next presenter didn't actually arrive until last night. He flew down literally after work, raced in, had a cup of tea with his team, and he caught them up with everything that's been happening in the office in the last 24 hours. And I managed to catch up with him this morning. He's a pretty happy looking individual. Poli. Do you want to come up and join us while I wax lyrical about what you're doing, Matt? Where is he? He's still outside having a chat. James, would you mind going out and grabbing Paul for us for a second? And we can talk about him behind his back while he comes in. That wouldn't be very kind, would it? Oh, goodness me. Hey, I did have a chat with a couple of you earlier on today. So we've got our Singapore conference coming up, which is the Future of Forward-Facing Minerals Conference. That's happening at the end of March. So a couple of you have spoken to Stuart. He's the man that you want to speak to about that and about dates. Some of you, Tom, have already booked to go up. So it really should be a lot of fun. I found it really insightful last year. Like the first panel discussion we had then about company secretaries, I found that interesting. They go into more depth about all the different minerals and where they've been used, the resources, etc. So it's educational, as well as you've got those opportunities, obviously, to make a little bit of money. So this fella here, Poli, who's racing in down the back now, you're just racing around all over the place today with your news, aren't you? And he is a happy-looking guy. So he's got 2 projects he's going to have a little chat to us about. He's got, in his words, he likes to say he's got the perfect gold with a twist of lithium. So gold's in Lake Kerry, and they've got this fantastic little plan where they are actually going to be making 1 million ounces plus in their resource. They're going further and further and beyond. And the lithium is over in Thailand, and that's a really big strike grant they've got. It goes from, is it Bangkok to Phuket? Yeah, so it's a lot. You've only got 15 minutes to get through it. So would you please make Poli from Matsa Resources welcome, please?
Thanks very much, Chrissy. I appreciate that. Matsa Resources, we've been around for a little while. Our code is MAT, and obviously we're ASX listed, our disclaimer. The company itself, we have got 480 odd million shares out on issue. Our current market cap is a very low $16 odd million, and that's something that we're continually trying to fix up and get it going upwards. But it's pretty tough times out there at the moment in the market, and as we all know, when it's tough, that's when opportunities arise for investors. So we'd like you to have a look at Matsa. We think we're a compelling long-term investment and will deliver some results. We've got 936,000 ounces in our gold resource. Half of it, or just over half of it, is inferred, which means the other half is either measured or indicated. It's at 2.5 grams per tonne, so it's a very good grade, and we'll come back to that. Shareholders, BNP Paribas, Deutsche Balaton, from small German institution that's been with us for many years, and of course there's me on the share registry there as well. That's what we like to call ourselves, a significant resource with a twist of lithium, and I'll expand on that. But what we really want to talk about for the first half of our presentation is our Lake Kerry Gold Project. I think it's a high value project which currently has got no or very little value addressed to it. Regionally, we're surrounded by world-class mines, Anglo Gold Ashanti to the north of us with their Sunrise Dam gold mine. It's produced many millions of ounces. Further to the north, Goldfields with their Granny Smith mine. To the south of us, of course, we've got Deep South Porphyry, and also got Anglo Gold Butch as well. The claim to fame for us is not only our gold resource at a good grade, but it is a fairly unexplored or underexplored area because of the lake system that is there. Lakes no longer present problems for drilling because they're specialised lake rigs, but historically they were very difficult and expensive and probably not environmentally friendly to drill. We've got significant structures, the Fortitude structure and the Binder structure going right through our ground, and with that Binder structure is where you'll see a lot of the gold mineralisation, including to the north, as I said, Jubilee, Sunrise Dam, and further to the south. So what do we have at Lake Carey? Well, I think you'll be surprised to know, but we've actually got 3 gold mines at Lake Carey. Fortitude Gold Mine, which is a mine-ready gold mine. We can actually start mining there tomorrow should we choose to. The Devon Pit Gold Mine, mining applications have been lodged. All permitting applications have been lodged. This should be permitted, ready for mining early next year. And the Red October underground gold mine, which we purchased off Saracen in 2018 odd. And we've done some mining in there that's currently on care and maintenance, but that is also mine ready. We can re-enter that anytime we choose. We've kept it completely dry and it is fully accessible right down to 600 metres depth. We've got a world-class exploration project, our Fortitude North, which is situated just 6 kilometres to the north of our Fortitude gold mine. So it is all in close proximity. I'll come back to Fortitude North. We've also then got a quality pipeline of exploration projects throughout Lake Carey, actually numbers up to 28. So as a gold project, we think it's extremely exciting. But when you consider the M&A activity around our area, what Genesis is doing with St Barbara, their takeover, the recently announced final takeover of Dacian, Silver Lake with Red 5. The area is absolutely prolific for M&A, and we ourselves are currently in talks with Anglo Gold Ashanti, who paid us $500,000 in July for an exclusivity period of 3 months, which expires on the 27th of October, and we'll see what deal we can come up with Anglo Gold. Is it either an acquisition, part acquisition, joint venture? But those talks are currently ongoing. So the Fortitude gold mine itself, which I said is mine ready, we did a trial pit, or 3 small trial pits a few years ago. There's our waste dump. So we were the first company to enter this area. This is, as I said, mine ready. The new mine will be amalgamation of these 3 small pits, and at a gold price of $2,400 Aussie, this mine will make $95 million positive free cash flow. If you put a $3,000 gold price to that, if you increase your revenue by $600 an ounce over 132,000 ounces, it becomes a significant cash flow proposition for the company. If you re-optimize the pits at $2,700 instead of the existing $2,000 optimization, you can actually produce 206,000 ounces of gold at 1.6 grams per tonne. This becomes a very valuable mine. The Devon Pit. We currently are in a joint venture with Linden Gold Alliance. The guys at Linden Gold have worked very hard and they're good guys. The JVA is currently in dispute, but we hope to resolve that in the very, very near term, and everyone hopes for a commercial, amicable resolution. But this mine currently shows $37 million as a feasibility study at a gold price of $2,650 with pit optimised at $2,000. If we were to use a higher gold price and a higher optimisation, it would be very interesting to see where this goes. As I said, this should be mine permitted early next year. Red October, as I said, currently in care and maintenance. We can re-enter it whenever we choose. There is 244,000 ounces at a massive 6.2 grams per tonne. What I want to spend a couple of moments looking at is if we do have 936,000 ounces, well, we do, at 2.5 grams per tonne, what is that worth? If we have a look at the mergers and acquisitions over the last few months within Western Australia, we can see the Pantoro deal, Catalyst, Ramelius, St Barb's. Ramelius have done 2 projects, acquired Musgrave and Breaker. So we can start to see what resource volume at what grade is of interest to acquisitive companies. And if we've got 1.6 grams per tonne, 1.8 grams per tonne, that's interesting. We've got 2.5 grams per tonne. So you can see that we're at that midpoint. You can see the size of our resource is also of interest. So what's it worth? If we have a look at those acquisitions, and these charts have been kindly given to us by Alpine Capital, probably Australia's newest capital group, formerly Wentworth and Re Capital. If we have a look at what are these worth? So the acquisition costs of ounces in ground in resource has been as high as $218 an ounce, as low as $28 an ounce for the Pantoro Tulla acquisition. We've got an average value of $88 an ounce. Now, if Matsa has 936,000 ounces, that is equivalent to $82 million value in ground if we use this average price per ounce. We've got a market cap of 16 million. What's wrong? We don't know the answer to that. But what we do know is we're significantly undervalued. We must one day, be it tomorrow, be it next year or whenever, one day we've got to fetch market value. That is one of the reasons we think you should have significant interest in Matsa today. Now, that $88 that I just spoke to you about does not include exploration potential. Fortitude North, I said that was a fantastic project, exploration project in my opening slides. This is a 1.7 kilometre long mineralised zone. We're getting massive hits, 25 metres at 3.3 grams. Absolutely sensational for an open pit mine. The width at our northern end is 250 metres wide. So all of a sudden, the potential of this discovery is huge. That does not come into the $82 million that I spoke about previously. We were unaware of the quality of this discovery when we were first drilling it out. We were drilling to the south, which is on the lake. It's only early this year in March that we realised that the size, the scope, the magnitude of discovery explodes in potential. So as soon as we finish our discussions with a potential suitor or acquisitor of Lake Kerry, we will return back to here and we will drill this out. We've been quiet for the last 12 months, but that'll change. The actual discovery area of Fortitude North to the north is of interest to us. We can start to see some of the higher grades. That's what we had in 2022. What we got in 2023 was significantly better. And what's happened to the north, we've increased the size and the volume by 63% of potentially what we have. So, Lake Kerry itself, when you have a look at the acquisitions, have a look at ounces per dollar, I think is a compelling acquisition for a larger company. And if they don't, well, we'll get back to putting it into production ourselves. It's an each way bet. I do want to spend the last 3 minutes of my talk talking about Thailand. Thailand, to us, is a sensational new provincial discovery, in that there is one ASX company in Thailand that has got a lithium resource. It is lepidolite, it is 0.4%, and they got 10 million tonnes of it, and that is Pan Asia. They've done a fantastic job in Thailand, and they're leaders in the country. But what have we done? Well, we've acquired just over 1,700 square kilometres of ground from Kanchanaburi to the north of mid-Thailand, equivalent to Bangkok, all the way down to Phang Nga, which is 600 kilometres in strike, which is just north of Phuket. This is Myanmar here. We should put the country in there. It's a little bit confusing. So we are on the extreme western border of Thailand, bordering Myanmar, the old Burma. We've pegged ground that has got old tin mines, coincident with tourmaline, on the Western Granite Belt contact zone. And that's where we're finding lithium. We've got 5 drill-ready targets ready to go. We've got the applications in with DPIM, the Department of Mining and Primary Industries and Mining in Thailand, and we're waiting for those to get granted. We hoped to have some grants already granted to us in September. They still haven't done. With a change of government, we expect that to be a 2 to 3 month delay. So we're hoping to get in there early in the new year. I've said it before and will continue to say, lepidolite is a very valuable commodity. Australians in the Australian market are fully aware of spodumene. They're not aware of lepidolite. But the Chinese in Yangtze province only mine lepidolite and they only process lepidolite. It is now a common processing method. It is mature and it is of equivalent cost and equivalent environmental safety to spodumene. That's the actual process there, but in the interest of speeding, I'll jump a few slides. Our product is a potential DSO product. 1.65%, Rose Panther 2.44%. We've had this tested in the laboratories in China. We can very quickly concentrate it up to 5.91% and 4.04%. What we have in Thailand is high-grade lithium. We're just waiting for our exploration licenses to get granted, and they will. On that note, I've used my 15 minutes. I thank you for the time that you've spent in listening to me today. We're out in the booth. Please come and talk to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul Poli. You're a great educator, a great teacher, and a really good storyteller, and also a very good human being, because for those of you who are looking through your program went, Paul Poli's not on at 9:45, it's Brendan, the man with the name similar to the famous cricket player. Paul was outside minding his own business, having another cup of tea, when James, God bless him, raced outside and said, Chrissy said you're on now, you need to come inside. And he went, oh yeah, I can tell that story now. And you can tell that story now because he's got such passion in it and he really believes in it. So thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it very, very much. All right, we're going to travel from Thailand back to WA. I did abort that jet and we're going to bring it back in now. So coming back to WA, we're going to jump in the car in Perth and we're going to travel 665 kilometres, slightly northeast, and we're going to go into the Khoo, the Murchison region up that way, because Victory Metals is exploring and they're developing their rare earth element and scandium discovery in the Khoo region. It's the ongoing evolution of their ionic clay RE discovery. It's pretty significant because they're boasting high ratios of heavy rare earth oxides and also critical magnet metals. So this gentleman here, the dapper Brendan Clark, is going to tell us all about it. Would you please make him very welcome, everyone?
Thank you for the introduction. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to, as well as present our project, this is an emerging space, the rare earth space, especially in clays. And I just want to focus on a few important points when looking at these types of investments. So there's our disclaimer. Make yourself aware of that. We have a booth and we have some available. So when you have some time, I'll leave that to you. So Victory is Australia's largest heavy rare earth enriched system, and that was announced recently from our maiden resource, where we demonstrated 250 million tonnes of rare earth element oxide, which equates to 130,000 total, 130,000 tonnes of TREO. So one thing that's really unique about the Victory project in North Stanmore is our ratios of heavy rare earths versus total rare earths. So that's sitting between 33 and 34%, and that gives us a very high basket price of $102,000 per tonne. So we also have very high percentages in that heavy rare earth ratio of dysprosium and terbium. Now, they're the future of rare earths. They're the two critical elements, and they're extremely valuable and predicted to be 70% deficit by 2030. We've also achieved very excellent metallurgy with over 77% recoveries, And the North Stanmore project is 100% owned. We have very few stakeholders to deal with, and we're situated in the Midwest in Khoo between Mount Magnet and Meekatharra, and we have very excellent logistical advantages as well. We've got an infill drilling program that's actually about 2 weeks away from completion, and that's resource definition program to look at building up our existing MRE and increase the confidence from inferred to indicated. That's also expected to increase the grade as well as the scale. So only a few weeks left of drilling. We've got an air core rig out there at the moment and a diamond rig, and things are going extremely well. Another really important part of these rare earth plays in clays is the actual leach times and the metallurgy process. So Victory's achieved excellent recoveries with low leach times and low acid use and using economical types of acid, and I'll touch on that very shortly. Another important factor is radioactive elements. We have no anomalism of radioactive elements. It's very common in rare earth systems to have uranium and thorium, and fortunately we don't have that to deal with in this system because that creates several complexities at the recovery process. The initial mineral resource estimate, 250 million tonnes at 520 parts per million. The initial program was quite a large spacing between drill holes. Our actual in-hole assays is over 820 ppm. So with the infill drilling program, we're really expecting to see a good increase in grade. With further holes, it will bring more confidence. It happened with our peers, IXR, when they did their inferred resource. Their grade was lower than what their indicated results were. So we're looking forward to that. We've got a massive exploration target of 700 million to 1.1 billion tonnes, and that's only over a very small part of the North Stanmore area, and we have mineralisation open in all directions. Now, for these systems, you actually don't need hundreds and hundreds of millions of tonnes. That will just bring you can identify the high-grade zones, but anything kind of over 100 billion tonnes can, if you've got good metallurgy and good ratios of rare earths, it will make, I think there's a very high chance to have a project at that level. Which I mentioned before, the key standout for us is the ratios of heavy rare earth ratios, sitting at about 33 to 34%, and that's outstanding. Also 54% of critical metals, which is identified by the US government. Now, this is a really important point here. Not all rare earths are actually rare. There's rare earth elements like cerium and lanthanum that are actually in higher supply, abundant supply, and they're not valuable. They're worth about $6 combined a kilogram. And so you might have something that's got a higher grade, but most of that grade is polyfiller, which is probably cerium. And we don't have that. We don't have that in this system, so that's a great advantage. Now, when you look at the price of dysprosium and terbium at $2,700 a kilogram combined, there's a big difference there, and that's when you look at this basket price. You've got to look at it like a bunch of 15, 16 elements. It's a bunch of goodies. They all have different values, and we've mentioned IXR and Meteoric. IXR have got a rare earth project in Uganda and Meteoric in Brazil. And the reason why we refer to these companies is because they release, as Victory, a very reliable data set, and we're able to have a good comparison with those two peer companies. And as you can see there, it's quite a big difference, and you can see Victory is leading the pack with the highest basket price, and that is because of our ratios of heavy rare earths and dysprosium and terbium. Some further comparisons. I won't go through all of these charts, but I want to just touch base on the one on the top left-hand side first. That's the heavy rare earth to total rare earth ratio. You can see, again, Victory well above the other two companies. And then also the dysprosium and terbium ratios. They're critical elements, as I mentioned, and very valuable. Now, in relation to the two light rare earths, neodymium and praseodymium, together with dysprosium and terbium, they're the four magnet metals. They're light rare earths, and they're worth about $130 a kilogram each. And Victory is a couple of percent, sitting around 18%, and that's because, and the others around 21%. That's because we're a heavy rare earth dominated system, and that doesn't affect our basket price at all, because as you could see, we are already well ahead there. And the heavy rare earths are really the focus. The industrial levels of uranium and thorium, you can see that Victory is well below the average, where our levels are actually under the upper continental crust level limits. So we have no active anomalism. And where you can see somebody like Meteoric, and they're dealing with a more complex system where they've got about 10 times the radioactive elements that they have to deal with, which comes through when you do your recoveries. It comes through similar to heavy rare earths. So it's going to be an issue to deal with at the recovery stage. And I'm glad it's not an issue that we have to deal with. Okay, so Khoo, the location. We have the Great Northern Highway, which is, as we know, one of the most major arterial network roads in Australia, connecting the Pilbara to the Perth and the ports, and that runs straight through North Stanmore. We're situated about 7 kilometres from town, and we benefit from the Khoo airstrip as well, which is a bitumised airstrip, and Westgold, our neighbour, fly in a 76-seat aircraft. And looking forward at future economics of CapEx, when you've got these infrastructures, it actually makes a lot of sense that you don't have to look at building airfields, etc., when you get to the production stage. We've also recently, Westgold's mobilised, commissioned a hybrid power station, and that's because the Khoo region is a very favourable with all weather conditions. We have not much rain there, and can operate all year round, and exploration all year round as well. So we've got excellent advantages, and we're about 420 kilometres to the Geraldton port, being the nearest port. So metallurgy, we went out in the initial stage to go and focus on those heavy rare earths, because as I keep on drumming on, that's where the value is. And with low leach times and low temperature, only 4 hours leach time, we achieved an excellent recovery of over 60% of heavy rare earths. And we went back and had a crack at, with our technical lead, Professor Ken Collison's advice, we went back and tried another technique to get the light rare earths out. And we added one process to the flow sheet, and we're able to get a 77% recovery of our 4 magnet metals, which is really outstanding. And that was using a blend of ammonium sulfate and sulfuric acid. And sulfuric acid is 4 times cheaper than hydrochloric acid, and way easier and less environmentally impacting as what hydrochloric acid is. So that's another thing when you're looking at these systems, to consider what the acid use is and also leach times. In very simple terms, if you've got a project with a 2-hour leach time or a 12-hour leach time, they're going to have a 6-time larger plant to get the same throughput as somebody with a 2-hour leach time. So leach times are very important. This is our conceptual flow sheet, and it's a very simple process. So we've identified that the majority of our rare earths are actually caught up in the finer material, and so we can beneficiate our material very well with about 148% increase. And so what we do is we get rid of the coarse material, and then let's not forget we're in Khoo, which is one of the most famous gold regions in WA, and has a lot of alluvial gold. So we're going to set up an alluvial gold plant that's for the coarse material, and then goes back to pit. And then we go through a leach process, and we create our mixed rare earth carbonate, which is what we would deem as our final product, and then it would go off to the refiners. Now, which is a way more complicated process. The average is about 75%, 80% of value that you get in your mixed rare earth carbonate. So it's still a very valuable product. And we've got nickel and cobalt in our system, and imminently we're producing this carbonate, and we're very interested to see whether we're able to actually extract nickel and cobalt at the same time. And we'll update the market in the very near future about that. So back to metallurgy: low acid use, low cost acids, low leach times, low radioactivity, and low impurities. And then you've got, we took all those boxes, and that's why we're getting excellent recoveries. And in relation to impurities, and I'll click to this slide here, not everyone's actually announcing what their impurities are. Victory has very low levels, because when you're processing, you get the aluminium and iron that comes through. You then need to extract that and get rid of that. It could be a costly exercise. We've got very low levels of impurities, which is another positive thing. I think we're all starting to learn a lot more about rare earths and the critical uses, but with the transition of renewable energies and the defence industry, I think they're the key factors that's driving this forward, and that's why you're seeing in 2030 forecasts of massive deficits of these elements. So the government is heavily behind this space, and there's a few examples there, but with the government loaning Aluka over $1 billion, you've got the US government with Linus in the US building a plant and a refinery. So there's a lot of support that's coming through government, and that's a very exciting space for us to be in. And the next year, this is what it kind of looks like for us. We've got our infill drilling program to increase the grade, confidence and scale of our existing resource, and that is well underway. And as I mentioned earlier, only a couple of weeks from completion. And we've got some excellent times, about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks at the moment to get assays back from the lab. So we're not having the same problems as what we had about a year ago. We've got the exploration 7 kilometres to the north. Our mineralisation's open in all directions, and we really believe that there's some significant upside to the north. We've got the imminent outcome of our own mixed rare earth carbonate that will be completed actually tomorrow. I'm flying to Brisbane this evening, and we're doing that tomorrow. And ongoing metallurgy and beneficiation studies. Of course, you're always trying to look at the right mix, although so far we think we've actually we've cracked it, and we've got a good position that we've got a good outcome. Offtake and JV discussions. It's a very exciting space, the rare earth space, and of course, our doors are open, and it's likely that there's going to be lots of people. Linus made an announcement at the diggers that they're looking for clay, heavy rare earth enriched systems, and that's exactly what we are. So we look forward to what discussions can be underway there, and obviously JV discussions also. Scoping study, we're at the end of these upgraded MRE, we're pushing straight into scoping study, and that will be scheduled to commence early next year. So just got 50 seconds left. So well funded for these programs. We've got over $3 million in the bank. We're Australia's largest heavy rare earth enriched system. We've got huge tonnage. We're 100% owned, and no land access issues. And as I mentioned, not many stakeholders to also deal with, which is very favourable. And in relation to the corporate structure, sitting at around $18 million at the moment, which is outstanding value compared to peers. And we've got a very tight register, only 80 million shares on issue, 18 million oppies, and they're all priced above the current trading price, so there's nothing silly there. And excellent support from the board and founders. I'm a major shareholder personally, with about number 2 or 3 in the register, so I'm fully behind it. And I thank you for your time, and look forward to talking to any of you if you want to know more about what we've got on the go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brendan Clark. Very well done indeed. I saw our next presenter race into the room when I dragged Poli out of his cup of tea, and there were a number of presenters who went, "Oh my God, she's ahead of time, we better get in the room." And Jeremy was one of them, and Jeremy is my new hand buddy. Aren't you, Jeremy? So I just burnt, for those of you I haven't said, I burnt my hand in the oven the other day and then forgot to have it treated because I have so many children and I was too busy working and children that I left it untreated, so hence it's a bit of a mess. But yours is far more impressive than mine, isn't it? What have you actually done to yours? I've got 1 minute up my sleeve.
I've got a few stitches.
Yeah, it's beautifully stitched. It's like a zipper. Is it a tendon thing that you've done?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a much better story than mine. Mine was just sheer clumsiness. And you have a chat to him about his project and about his hand as well. After this is Jeremy, everyone. Jeremy Bauer. He's from Reach. Quite apt, I think, considering you've hurt your hand reaching out for something. You're reaching for some really good projects. So we're going up to Carnarvon for this one. So we're up in Carnarvon. You've got a couple of great things happening with lithium, but also magnesium. And that's going to be interesting. So he's a bit of value adding. Manganese. Manganese is what he's after. So that's going to be interesting. So let's hear where that could fit into your investment portfolio. Please make Jeremy very welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thanks, Chrissy. And thanks to Stewie and the Vertical Events team and Canaccord as major sponsors. I'm one of the few MDs or CEOs who actually live in the southwest and commute up to Perth and up to our projects in the north. So it's fantastic to get the opportunity to speak to investors locally and to showcase this region. So in saying that, if we've got a booth out there, if you'd like to come and chat to me now, or I'm often in the southwest, so grab a card and we can catch up at one of the beautiful venues that we're so lucky to have. This morning I will be able to introduce you to Reach Resources Ltd and the projects we've been able to put together. As Chrissy mentioned, we're nearby Carnarvon, our major focus. We're actually sort of north of Gascoyne Junction, a couple of hours north of Gascoyne Junction, so inland of Carnarvon. I will go through the portfolio we put together, but with a major emphasis on our Morrissy Hill lithium project. A competent person, Mr. Steve Valance, who's our exploration manager, he's been through this presentation and signed off on everything, so all is good. Quick snapshot, we've got a lot of experience on the board that covers mining, exploration, legal and financial, some of the key, obviously, targets you want from an experienced board. We've got no debt. We've recently done a fundraising in August, which gives us plenty of cash to see us through the next couple of drill programs, and a still relatively low market cap that sees us leveraged to further exploration success. ESG is one of these topics that have come into the industry, and rightly so, but it's a natural part of the way we've conducted our businesses with respect to the traditional owners, the pastoral station owners, and the environment. Over and above that, we've actually made a significant investment into a rare earth magnet recycling technology based out of the University of Houston in Texas. And that's part of our commitment to the full cycle of mining. We personally are believers in decarbonisation and electrification of the globe, and we see that as a major driving force behind our exploration programs and really provide part of the solution. So to give you investors a proposition to why you should invest in our company, we are proudly focused on Western Australia. The company was initially, Reach Resources came in and took over a small gold mining company, which has a resource at Paynes Find. But now we've put together two key project areas in the really underexplored, but increasingly successful Gascoyne region of Western Australia. Western Australia is a big place, as you know, but that's not quite to scale. As I said, our Morrissy Hill project is based, and these other ones are based on Unithara Station, 1.5 hours north of Gascoyne Junction, and then approximately 80 kilometres north of that on Wanna Station, we have Skyline and White Castles project, which I'll talk to further. So it's important, I think, for an early stage explorer such as us to have a couple of irons in the fire. And as I said, we're passionate about the electrification of the globe, and so critical minerals and battery minerals such as lithium, rare earths, and manganese. We've made a deliberate push into acquiring projects that have high prospectivity with those commodities. I've mentioned the investment in the rare earth magnet recycling technology, and we're also, as you'll see further down, we're in a good neighbourhood. There's some larger scale, bigger companies that have already taken big land positions next to our projects or in nearby. So I'll start with our Wanna projects. For context, there's the Hastings technology mine, which is one of the next rare earth mines due to come online, and the very successful Dreadnought Resources. They're very successful explorers, who have led the way for the Gascoyne and showing some of its value. So we've got a significant land position to the east of these guys. We're into the Edmonds sediment basin, so where Hastings and Dreadnought have been focused and had success on their rare earth discoveries. The White Castles project, we've deliberately accumulated ground there for its manganese potential, which we believe will be certainly part of a high demand curve going to the future with the focus on battery technology. Obviously, you can see Fortescue are accumulating land there as well. Skyline, we still have rare earth potential there, mainly in the southwestern portion, closer to the Hastings and Dreadnought ground, where it's part of the Gifford Creek complex. I mentioned the company was formed in 2021. It took over a small gold mine, a gold mining company, which has an inferred resource, quite high grade. It's small, but certainly something that we consider as a bonus for us. Clearly, gold isn't getting as much attention as probably what it deserves right now, but I'm very happy to have a gold hedge that could potentially give us an ability to toll treat, or I'd divest to fund further exploration in the Gascoyne. Moving to Unithara Station and our other couple of projects that you see there, the Camel Hill project and Wobbly Creek. Camel Hill is a long trend from our Morrissy Hill project and has the work we've done there thus far is significant outcropping pegmatite system with LCT potential, and we've completed a tenement-wide soil sampling program there with expecting results later on this month. And the Wobbly Creek project to the south, that's a really interesting project. Again, early stage, we've taken rock chips, which provided some really high grades of niobium, one of these other critical minerals of the future. And you heard the gentleman before talking about the heavy rare earth. This has a significant percentage of heavy rare earths to light rare earths. It's an early stage project. We've also completed a tenement-wide soil sampling program across this project, which we'll analyse and understand from a geochemical point of view to give us greater understanding of what other targets and what sort of prospectivity we've got at these areas. This is our flagship project, if you like, the Morrissy Hill project. We're in good company, as you can see by a couple of the land positions taken up surrounding us. I guess when you think of the old real estate adage of location, 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 we tick a couple of boxes there. Corporately, clearly there's interest from bigger players. Delta Lithium just had Chris Ellison and Mineral Resources take a controlling stake. Ellison has control of the nearby Onslow port, which may be part of his interest there. And then Minerals 260, who surround us on the other side. That's a Liontown spin-off with Tim Goyder's involvement on it. So these guys are seeing the prospectivity and the potential for this region. The second part of that location is, and most importantly, is the geology. So we've been able to ascertain that this site contains the fertile granites, the 33 supersuite, that have spurned the pegmatites in the region, which are outcropping across this whole tenement. Delta's Melinda deposit, where they've drilled so far about 75,000 metres and have come up with some significant lithium intersections, is in the same geological formation as where we're finding our pegmatites. We've got, which I'll show you a bit of a close-up version of this tenement now. So we've just undertaken our maiden drill program in around that Bonza area, the larger ellipse you see there. You can see a few of these dots that in the centre point up here. That was a 500-metre section, a combination of RC and diamond drilling. But while the guys are on site, the team have had the chance to actually do some work and walk and map the ground, which has uncovered a range of other targets which only enhance our confidence in this project. We expect the assay results from this maiden program in early November, combined with, we've got an expert geochemist who's going to run through those numbers. Once you get these numbers on a lithium basis, it's really important to go through certain ratios to understand the extent of potential spodumene formation as opposed to some of the other lithium-bearing minerals. So we'll be undertaking that analysis, and that's always part of our the way we approach our exploration in terms of a really methodical scientific method. One of the other encouraging signs at Morrissy Hill based on this drilling was the discovery of what we term a blind pegmatite. There's numerous outcropping pegmatites on site, and I've got a couple of photos of those next. But drilling uncovered what we believe is a blind pegmatite, so something that's not outcropping, which has the potential, of course, to increase the scale of what's on site. From the work we've done, we believe there's a cumulative 10 kilometres of strike, potential strike. We've obviously got to do further work to understand that more fully, but it gives us the confidence that scale is possible here, and we have a potential company-making project on our hands. We'll be heading back out there in November once we receive those results to get another drill program in before the end of the year. This is just a couple of shots of some of the pegmatites that we've mapped on site. Importantly, we see them intruding through the greenstone or mafic volcanic packages that many of you would have heard of. We've got a good relationship with the traditional owners, the Ingida people, and we've undertaken a number of heritage surveys which provide clearance for these upcoming drill programs. So just to finish off, we've been able to tick off our maiden drill program, and that's a huge amount of information we'll take forward for the next one. We've had tenement-wide geochemical soil sampling programs, which again gives us a huge amount of data, which enables our process to narrow in on targets. Results early November from phase 1 drilling, phase 2 to kick off later in November, and then moving into 2024 and then the other projects. We've got a heritage agreement to negotiate with one of the traditional owner groups for our manganese project, and we'll be doing the same at Wobbly Creek, where we've got those higher grade niobium and rare earth hits, and it all bodes for a very busy 2024. So that's where we're at. Very quickly in summary, we are funded to conduct our next couple of drill programs. We've established and been able to put together a really strong critical battery mineral portfolio that as an early stage explorer provides us a lot of upside, particularly with the gold hedge. So as I said, I'm based in the southwest. If any of you local people want to catch up over a coffee at one of our surfside cafes, then please come and find me. Thanks very much.
Good on you, Jeremy. Were you this laid back when you used to work in Perth? Yeah, you were. Okay, so you had to come down here. It's good, isn't it? You've seen Nicolas Cage down here? No, yeah. Oh, cool, because they put out an invite, didn't they, for school kids down here who could surf with a bit of attitude. Does your son have a bit of attitude? Fabulous, yeah. I've got a couple of those at home. Right, share price for our next company has been going up on the back of some very good drilling resources. Results. We're talking Magnetic Resources. Now, they actually put a resource estimate out, you might have read back in February, And when I was talking with them this morning, they are pretty confident that the latest results will blow that resource out of the water. So there is much discussion, in fact, around them becoming a multi-million ounce gold deposit, which is, look how happy this fellow is. He's reserved on the inside. He's very, very happy. So we're going to hear an insight into the engineering studies, the relevant approval processes that are all bringing the assets to production. And I think that the latest headline that I read about Magnetic Resources was "Magnetic flags more hits at gold deposit near hungry Laverton Mills." So this is the man with the information, the background, the story. Would you please welcome MD George Sakalidis?
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here, and I guess I've got a lot to present, so I better get stuck into it. Yeah, so basically, we made these discoveries just south of Laverton. There's three main deposits: Lady Julie Central, HM9, and Lady Julie North 4. Lady Julie North 4 is the one that's had these amazing results, and we expect the resource to grow dramatically on the back of these. We're right in the heartland of Laverton, where there's some very big deposits. Wallaby Mine, 7 million ounces, and Sunrise Dam, 35 million ounces. And we're pretty close to these operating mills. And we'll be talking about these amazing intersections. And a lot of them are very thick and high grade, and I will try to educate people on what thick and high grade, how to compare various intersections that other companies can make as well. Okay, so our market cap's around 200 million. It's a bit higher today after our announcement was put out this morning. We have mainly high net worth investors as I guess as shareholders, and the top 4 own about 45%, the top 20 around 78%. So it's a very tightly held stock. I have kept the share structure very tight. It's only 44 million shares. It did list in 2007. Main project is at Laverton, where you can see that on the map there. Okay, so these discoveries have been made over the last 5 to 6 years. HM9 was discovered in 2019-20, then Lady Julie Central in 2021. Lady Julie North 4 is the one that we'll be mainly talking about today, and that was the last one that was discovered. Look, this slide will come up again later, but it's just to get people focused in on what we've achieved. We made the announcement this morning, 126 metres at 2.8 grams, and we've been drilling downwards and been getting some amazing thick, high-grade intersections. And this is the main thing that we're talking about today. We are putting holes down to 500 metres. So obviously, if it keeps going, the resource will grow dramatically. Okay, so where are we? We're near Laverton, just 15 kilometres south, a great position for the people to work. We're next door to these big operations at Wallaby, Granny Smith, Jupiter, and Sunrise Dam. So we know some of these mills need gold. Their inventory is low, and they need additional material. So we are in discussions with a number of those companies already. Okay, so this gives you a bit of an idea on what do these big mines look like, and do we have anything that might be similar? Remember, these mines are very big. Sunrise Dam is 16 million ounces, Wallaby is 7 million ounces. So obviously, if we can get anything like that, that would be fantastic. So what we see are these intrusions, cyanide intrusions at Jupiter and Wallaby. Sunrise Dam, the intrusions are at depth. The other common thing that we see are these lode systems or shear zones, and you can see them. These shear zones are often quite rich, and they stack downwards. At Wallaby, they're mining material down at about 1 kilometre depth. In Sunrise Dam, I think it's pretty deep as well. So, so these lode systems, if you can find these and the stacking, it's a great thing to have. The other thing that we've noticed is that Sunrise Dam have these breccia zones, and these breccia zones make their way to surface, often are vertical, closely associated with the deposits, but at the same time, these things bring up much higher grades, and some of them come close to surface, and others actually sub-parallel the shear zones. So that environment is where we're drilling at the moment, and we suspect that, you know, the geological, structural environment where we are similar to Sunrise Dam. Okay, so this is another map showing the where the mines are and also the processing plant. So Goldfields own the Wallaby mine, and they truck to the Granny Smith processing plant. Jupiter has a processing plant in Mount Morgans, and Sunrise Dam have an operation about 35 kilometres away. There is another company called Brightstar which have a processing plant which needs some upgrading as well. But so there's 4 processing plants that are potentially available, and we're very close. So we're only 10 k's away from this one, 15 k's away from that, 35 from that. So very close to these major operations. This just gives you an idea of our deposits. HN9, Lady Julie Central, Lady Julie North 4. This is the one that's emerging as being a very large deposit. It sits on a structure called the Chatterbox Shear, which goes for 32 kilometres, and I'll show you another slide later, but that's an important structure. These deposits that we have are only within a couple of kilometres of each other, so effectively this is one mining field. So this gives you an idea on that Hawksnest 9 deposit. Now, look, one of the main differences is we have these processing plants around us, so obviously we don't need to build a plant. The second major difference is that we have 3 deposits. 2 deposits outcrop, they start on the surface. So obviously the costs of mining these are minimal, and you know, we can quickly get into a positive cash flow. So this deposit HN9 actually outcrops, so it starts on surface and dips gently to the east. The next deposit has higher and thicker intersections and starts from surface, and you can see some of these 25 metres, 4 grams from surface, etc., etc. Very nice starter pit for a new operation, and that's part of the potential plan that we're looking at. But the next deposit, the Lady Julie North 4, is the main game. And here we do have a bit of cover, 30 metres of cover, but we've had consistently high grade and thick intersections. And the last one we announced today is probably the highest, 126 at 2.8 grams from 180 metres. Now, a quick education, it's very hard to compare different people's intersections. All you need to do is multiply thickness times the grade. The gram thickness gives you a rough idea on potentially how good this might be. So some of these are over 100, and the last one's over 350. I'm happy with anything above 50. So these are exceptional grade thickness results. So pointing to potential for economic conditions that these will most likely be mined. So that's what I look at. I don't just look at an intersection in isolation. Okay, so in detail, these are the holes. Every one of these holes is intersection greater than 2 grams per tonne. It's about 800 metres in length. We have not closed it off at depth. Not one of our drill holes. All our drill holes end in mineralisation. The latest interpretation of it is in this area, we have much thicker zones, but we believe that it's part of another structure going to the northeast. And so part of our plan is to test that. You can see some of the cross sections going through the middle with some exceptional grades. 24 at 2, 42 at 4 grams. So pretty nice numbers. And this is obviously open down dip. Similarly with our other cross sections, you can see that's the latest one we put out, but up dip, there's 111 at 1.1, 45 at 2.65. So these are exceptional thick intersections. And again, that's open down dip. Same with these two diamond holes, 30 metres at 5.5 grams, 21 at 5 grams, again open. Now the next slide gives you a bit of an idea of how we're thinking this. So as you go in, we think it's plunging to the northeast, and when you overlay all the drilling results, you can see all these thickened results going downwards, 138 at 2.2, and below that, 126, 60 at 1. And you can see these are our next planned drill holes. In fact, hole 33 target depth is 550 metres, and we're currently around, I think about 290 metres. So we're working our way downwards. We've drilled another diamond hole 34 sitting in here. So we're waiting on those results. So obviously, if we keep getting these thick intersections, the resource will go through the roof. And that's a great thing for us. Okay, so we talked about the breccia zones. Why are they important? When we see breccia zones, most geologists get pretty excited. They're very unusual. They come up at high pressure and they actually grind the rock, surrounding rocks. So these little clasts are from the surrounding rocks, and often when these come in association with this silica pyrite alteration, the grades go up, and we're seeing 50-metre zones of these alteration in our system. So that's part of the reason why we suspect this is part of a much bigger system at depth. And this structure that we mentioned briefly before, it's called the Chatterbox Shear. It goes for 32 kilometres. Starts at Beasley Creek, which is a gold deposit, Apollo, Lady Julie Northfall, which is the one we're talking about today, goes through our ground. We have another small deposit called Mount Jumbo sitting in here. But this deposit goes all the way towards Wallaby. So it's a very fertile structure, and that's what you look for. It's very pronounced, and it shows up in seismic surveys, which we completed about 1.5 years ago. So we did 2D and passive seismic, and you can see this structure out here is in fact the Chatterbox Shear. So we've currently drilled that down to about 500 metres. No, we're planning to get it to 500 metres. So we're basically testing it in that area. When the seismic guys did their interpretation, they were talking about these vertical structures, and the vertical structures I suspect are part of the breccia mineralising system coming from depth. Looking at the scale, this structure or thrust zone goes down to close to 2 kilometres in depth. So we're just up here, but so far we've had some tremendous results. If it keeps going down to depth, it'll end up being a world-class deposit like the ones we see next door. Look, in the background, we're preparing to apply for mining leases. We're hoping it happens pretty soon. All those studies have been completed, and metallurgical test work results were very, very good, very high recoveries. The resource is due to be updated, and then we'll do our economic optimisation studies. Clearly the resource will grow much, much higher than what we published in February last year, which was about 600, so this year 600,000 ounces. So that will be done. All these different flora, fauna, hydrological work that have all been completed. So hopefully we can apply for a mining lease over the Lady Julie Northfall deposit very soon. So that's most of the talk. I've rushed through it probably too much, but the main game is Lady Julie Northfall, and we're getting some amazing results. Clearly there's strong interest from our neighbours, and we'll be talking to them in earnest about our results as well. Thank you.
Thank you, George. He's an exploration geophysicist. I love that as a title. I was just looking up some jokes about it too, but none of them were appropriate for the stage at this point in time. We're going to take a little bit of a trip now. Hello. Back in July, I went up to Marble Bar and I was hosting the Marble Bar races up there, which was a definite experience that you need to go and get yourself involved in. And I had a bit of I had a Prado. I thought, well, while I'm here, I'll go and see Carragini. So I took off for Carragini and we went through, we went off the bitumen, we went through the track, and we went through the dirt tracks, and we happened to go past the land that belongs to this lady here, the exploration land, so Tambourah Metals country, and it's beautiful country, and there's lots and lots of old abandoned poppet heads next to the road as you drive along, lots of potential, and many of them have never been touched since people walked off the land. That's more than 100 years ago, so they walked away. They haven't been explored, so there's all this potential sitting there, and this lady here, she's known as, I was thinking more like a bowerbird, but actually you do very wise acquisition. She's very thoughtful, very shrewd. And she's gone around, she's picked up all these potential sites. And recently, she's been doing a fair bit of drilling on it. And in the last week or so, there's been some really significant news flow from Tambourah Metals. So will you please welcome Rita, owner and the brains behind the operation, to tell us what she's up to and if you'd like to jump on board.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to Vertical Events, and it's good to present the Tambourah story to you. We listed 2 years ago in August 2021, and this is the forward-looking statements that you can read. The presentation is available online and it's also available at the booth. You can come and see us later. There's a lot to show, a lot to discuss. So it's lithium, gold, critical minerals, and we're highly prospective with lithium in the Pilbara. We've extended that recently with 6 new projects. In particular, we've had a joint venture now with SQM down in next door to Chalice, to the north of Chalice, and that's just out of Perth. And we're focused on also developing our Achilles nickel project. So we've got strong stakeholder engagement. The board is made up of Wayne Richards, myself, and Chris Ramsey. So as a corporate overview, our shares at 12.5 today. We've just finished drilling, so I look forward to bringing you those results in the next 6 weeks for gold and lithium, a nice combination at this moment. And our advanced projects, in the Pilbara, we've got Tambourah North with 1-2% rock chip samples. We purchased this project because it had joined our Tambourah project. And at Shaw River, it's a historic tin tantalum mine. There's extensive old workings there as alluvial, and nobody's ever tested the dumps or tested the pegmatites for lithium. So in the 50s to the 70s, it was significantly mined for the tin. And the comparison is when you look, if you look at Wodgina or at Tabba Tabba, they're all old tantalum and tin mines. So we're looking forward to bringing you the results of that work. And in Russian Jack, we applied this ground and extended it, and it's in the East Pilbara, 20 kilometres south of Nullagine. And as a result, we've got over 600 square kilometres at Russian Jack. And I'll be talking about the CSIRO collaboration that we're running at the moment, and we should be able to bring you some results of that early work. And at the Achilles is a nickel, gold and rare earths project. It's extensive. It sits 4 hours north of Laverton, and in particular, we've flown it and just highlighted 22 nickel conductors for sulfides, so that we're going to actually go back there and be doing some diamond drilling in the beginning of next year. And SQM is a Chilean-based lithium miner, and they've entered a joint venture with us at Julimar North. And Julimar, as you know, is the Chalice deposit, and SQM have a theory about these large structures could also host lithium. So in the Pilbara, you'll notice where I mentioned Wodgina, De Grey Mining have 10 million ounces, and our Shaw River is also just south of Tambina. At Tambourah, it's gold and lithium. So the gold is the historic gold mine. We've got over 30 producing mines from the 1890s to the 1900s. Some of the mines, the ones that we just drilled in the last fortnight, have never had a drill hole since the 1900s. And there was this significant production at World's Fair, over 3,000 ounces, and they were just mining the surface. So we've drilled there, and we hope to bring you the results of that in the next few weeks. At Nullagine, we've also extended our gold and lithium prospects there, and in particular Sheila to the southwest. It sits on the Nanjil Fault, which is a significant structure, and it hosts 3 deposits of over 5 million ounces. Paulsons, Mount Olympus and Capricorn are all on that major structure. We've got over 70 kilometres, and in particular when they're exploring for base metals, we have drill holes 8 metres at 8 grams at 88 metres depth, and we've finished a clearance now. 3 weeks ago we've got the report, and that will be one of the areas that we're going back to drill in the next quarter in the new year. Back to the Pilbara. So at Tambourah, we've got the Tambourah is sitting on the western side. It's granite against greenstones, and to the north is Tambourah North. And we bought that project with 6 lithium projects that we purchased from Minrex when they moved out of this region. You can see where the Shaw River is and the Kundina, and we've actually applied for the ground to the south of that, which also has historical pegmatites that have never been tested for lithium. So Tambourah North has rock chip sampling 2.5% to 1% in rock chips of lithium. We were drilling here 2 weeks ago, and that drill where we're drilling in that picture, we didn't hit, there was surface pegmatites, but we didn't hit the pegmatites in the 3rd drill hole, but we actually intercepted sulfide. So we'll be testing for gold there as well. That hole went down to 120 metres. By the way, next door to us, there was an announcement yesterday from Infinity Mining at Tambourah North. They had rock chip samples of 3% and 2.9%, which was 200 metres from our boundary. So that was a little bit north of where we were drilling. So we're back there mapping and sampling, and that will be part of our next project. At the Shaw River, we've mapped and sampled existing pegmatites. It was a significant tin producer, and again, like Wodgina and Tabba Tabba, there's no history of lithium sampling of these pegmatites. And that's what the pegmatites look like, because they've been significantly mined within the creeks, and the lithium sampling that we've initially done is on the right-hand side. You can see that on the presentation, and we've gone back and we've got up to 12% sampling in just the dumps. So this is the dumps. So in particular, we know that at Greenbushes, they've also gone back and sampled, because where they were mining for tin and tantalum, the lithium was just left in the tailings. So we're testing these now, and they've gone to the lab to do some ultrafine testing. So that's the Tambourah gold results. And again, Shaw River is 20 kilometres east of Tambourah. So we've got our projects, although they seem like a lot of projects, we've got them within distance that we can easily work and centralise our work programs. 2022, we had 2 metres at 6 grams. We had 22 metres at 1.3. So this was at the Tambourah King, and we drilled the federal with an EIS grant, and that was 9 metres at 6 grams. So there's a lot to work here and develop. And the World's Fair, you can see that just at the very north, that's what we drilled in the last month actually. So those results will be coming through in the next 6 weeks. So that's what the drilling looks like. It's very accessible, and a lot of interest in this particular area because it produced 3,000 ounces in 1900s. Russian Jack at the lithium project, you can see it's extensive. There's no drilling, there's no sampling, access is difficult, but you can see there's tin and tantalum that's been mined here, and that's what led us to this area. It's got the same split rock supersuite that hosts Pilgangoora, so the same age dating in the rocks. And our initial sampling, you can see there at 04 was 1420 ppm lithium and 1800 rubidium. So they're sort of pathfinder elements to look at the surface and then start mapping and developing our projects. So this is our collaboration with CSIRO. CSIRO are looking at large areas and machine learning to utilise our knowledge and our sampling and to work up some target areas. So this is the De Beers information that we purchased. The green is the micas that sit on the surface, and that's a rock chip sample that you can note there. So the micas are in there, the white is part of the feldspar units, and then we're getting on the ground. At the beginning of November, we're doing some heritage surveys so that we can plan our drilling there. And this is part of our Kickstarter grant that we got from CSIRO. So they're going to utilise that also at Haystack Well. We've got 1% down there at Russian Jack Northwest, and then to the southern section you can see the tantalum and tin at Twin Wells. So the news flow here will be consistent once we've got a meeting now in the middle of November with CSIRO for some of their preliminary results, and then we'll be reducing areas and targeting in the next quarter. This is just briefly to show you the SQM earn-in. They're interested in looking at old tantalum sampling, and they're going back to do initial screening, and once the farmers have finished doing the wheat crop, they'll be back in and may be able to do some air core drilling to test for lithium in the soils. So there's tantalum again. It could lead to pegmatites with spodumene lithium. So SQM have a joint venture to earn initially 50%, and you can note that that's where Chalice is to the south. So they'll also be testing for nickel and PGEs. Briefly, we'll be talking about this in the next coming weeks. This is the Achilles project. I didn't focus on that this morning, but in particular, there's a nickel deposit 10 kilometres south of us, which is 573,000 tonnes of nickel at 1.6% with copper and PGEs. So this deposit of prospect at Achilles, we did some AEM surveys, and we found 22 conductors that have never been drill tested at any depth. So initially there is at 270 metres, Western Mining located some nickel, but we've found that there's at 330 following on from Cannon, we think we've got some great targets. That's what our work program looks like. So we move down from the Pilbara over to the northeast goldfields and back into 2J area for the next couple of months. And we're planning the drill program for Achilles for next year. We'll be doing the EM survey, and then we're doing our heritage survey, but in particular, lithium and gold results coming shortly to plan where we're going to work. So Pilbara gold and lithium, of course, but the Pilbara is still a great area to look for gold, and our critical minerals portfolio are balanced and they're in the same area, and we've got a strong business plan, and it's a lot of information, but we have a great team that utilise their time in the different areas. Thank you very much.
Rita, thanks so much. When I woke up this morning, you know how you get those inspirational quotes in your inbox in the morning? I reckon this one pertains to you. So it said, remember your dreams and fight for them. You must know what you want from life. There is just one thing that makes your dreams become impossible, and that is the fear of failure. And that is certainly not you. You only have, how do I make it work? How do I go out there? She's an amazing human being. Would you put your hands together for Rita, everyone, please? Right, Dreadnought Resources. Hello, hello, hello. A West Australian-focused critical metals explorer with a really good track record of putting money in the ground and making discoveries. Their MD is one of the best team players, the best leaders, I think, in the resources industry. And I just found out this week that you're actually Texan.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I didn't realise you were Texan. We all had this other illusion as to where you came from. I think it doesn't matter anyway because we've officially adopted you now, so who cares? Dean Tuck, you're going to give us an update, obviously. He was working feverishly this morning on the presentation, and also there might be some announcements, so maybe if he's got time at the end, you might like to ask him a few questions. Would you please make Dean very welcome, everyone?
Excellent. Thank you guys all for being here, and it's great to be presenting, I think, for the last time this year at a conference, so I get to have a break and hopefully get back out to the field in the near future. So it's fantastic to be here. Thank you all for being here, and everyone checking in online now and into the future. The opportunity to come up and give an update on Dreadnought Resources and all the activities we have going across the project areas. Very excited to see what's coming. Disclaimers, not so exciting. For those of us that don't know Dreadnought Resources, we are an exploration company. We don't have a particular project. We don't have a particular commodity. We are explorers. We focus on that front end of the Lassonde curve, get out there, acquire significant land holdings in emerging provinces, do the boots on the ground work, define those targets, drill those targets, and deliver discoveries that deliver significant shareholder return and value for our shareholders. That is our focus. We are in Western Australia. We have invested over $6.2 million of our own cold hard cash into the company. For the last year, we've averaged over 90% of that money going into the ground. So we're not a lifestyle company. If we are, it's a horrible lifestyle. And we are out there making discoveries in the field. We got Sam Pussetti, Sam Bam, with us here today. He's a Margaret River local boy. Dropped the kids off with the grandparents and came down to chat to people. So come by the booth and look at some of the rocks. One of the things that we also have, what I think is our greatest asset, talking about Sam, is the Dream Team. I think we've accumulated and built one of the best exploration teams on the ASX. We've all worked together multiple times over the last 6 to 10 years. Guys like Sam and all of our senior geos, I've known them and worked with them and mentored them since they were at uni. We're a very close-knit team, and we are all passionate, driven, and aligned with our shareholders. We're all shareholders ourselves in order to deliver shareholder value. Boots on the ground, very active company, very active team, and very passionate about what we do. So it's been a rough year. I think the start of this year, I think we're around 10-15 cents a share price, and currently sitting around 5, just below 5. It's been a year I'm looking forward to ending, but I get asked this question in this last cap raise, and a question from a few shareholders, which I think is very, very pertinent question to ask, is are we better off now than we were at the start of the year? Yes, we've seen our share price come off, but what have we delivered? Are we in a better position? Do we actually have more value as a company so that when the market does turn, because it is cyclical and it always does, will we be in a position to profit and do well on the work that we've done this year? Second question I'm going to talk about in this conference today is what can we expect for the remainder of 2023? We've got a couple months left, and we've got a lot of things to drill, a lot of boots on the ground work to do over the next couple months. And then what can our shareholders expect of us going into 2024? So starting off, are we better off now than we were at the start of the year? Looking back on 2023, we have expanded the Yin Ironstone province substantially. So the Yin Ironstone complex, we've extended that from 30 strike kilometers to 43. We've made 3 discoveries at Sabre, Y2, Y8. We have delivered 3 resource updates. We have another resource update coming that will have a significant indicated component that can underpin scoping studies and project de-risking activities. We've extended the carbonatites, which we only discovered right at the end of 2022, from 6-kilometer strike to 17-kilometer strike, made the C3 discovery and delivered a resource on that. We have now matched and exceeded the resource base of Hastings Technology, who is going into production next door to us, with some of the thickest and highest grade intercepts that that region has ever seen, including our last infill drilling, which produced over 100 meters at 3%. The previous best drill intercepts in this region were 30 at 3, our first drill holes into Yin, and all significantly thicker and higher grade than what that region had seen before we came onto the board and made the Yin discoveries. In addition to that, those resources and building that foundation, which has certainly been the focus of our efforts and our funding this year, we've advanced in metallurgical studies and project de-risking and some gravity geophysical breakthroughs in trying to fingerprint the carbonatites, which we see as the blue sky opportunity on the rare earths and critical metals at Mangaroon going forward. We've also consolidated the high-grade gold opportunity at Mangaroon. The original reasons why we went to Mangaroon was for the nickel and the gold. And we've since, over the last year, got the Star of Mangaroon, accumulated all the gold provinces and projects nearby. This is a 10, 15 kilometer long shear zone, produced high grade gold that doesn't have barely any drilling into it. It's never had soil geochemistry, it's never had anything. So we've accumulated that ground, we've proven up all the rare earths, and we've made additional discoveries and resources on those. In addition to that, that's not all. We've also identified conductors and delivered nickel copper massive sulfides with our joint venture partner with First Quantum. That was an exciting outcome not too long ago. Massive sulfides just 30, 40 meters below the surface, and we're about to get back out there and start drilling that again. All funded by First Quantum. Yampi, the Kimberley, it was, we defined the 13 lookalike targets this year. I think it's been one of the hardest drill programs we've ever had, with breakdowns, with weather, water, and at the end, being chased by fires. So it was certainly, Kimberley's a fantastic place to operate. We'll have an update out on our activities up there soon as we prepare to demobilize and get back down to Mangaroon. Bresnahan, we have a conceptual heavy rare earth project. We proved the heavy rare earths on our ground, and in the meantime, we've continued to consolidate one of the largest land holdings in the Bresnahan Basin, which is Western Australia's a proven uranium basin within Western Australia. So it's proven uranium, largest landholder. We have conceptual and proven heavy rare earths and gold there as well. So it's a very significant emerging project next door to West Farmers and Teck, and we're one of the largest landholders in that region. Very excited about what that's going to deliver. And then of course, Central Yilgarn, we delivered the Metzger's gold resource earlier in the year, and we've well advanced in our gold and nickel and lithium prospects. We've got a dozen lithium pegmatite swarms, which I'll be out on in the first couple of weeks in December, mapping and sampling those. So are we in a better spot than we were at the start of the year? Absolutely, across all of our projects. We continue to deliver, we continue to invest in our projects, we continue to make discoveries and deliver resources in a multitude of commodities right here in WA. So what we can expect for the rest of 2023 is, of all that wasn't enough to keep us busy for this year. We have the additional yin resource coming out here shortly. We'll be doing some drilling on the Gifford Creek carbonatites, following up on the gravity, which I'll go into a bit of detail. We also have the gold generation work and gold drilling at the Star of Mangaroon, the Diamond Gold Mine. These are things that produced historically by the pastoralists at ounces to the ton. No drill holes into these things. It's a very, very exciting opportunity that we've been working on in the background. Of additional drilling at the Money Intrusion, rigs are mobilizing down there. We got Top Drill here, I believe at the moment, have kindly allocated a rig for us for the rest of the year, and we'll be drilling away with First Quantum, not only on the carbonatites, on the nickel, and also on the gold. Bresnahan, we have some boots on ground project generation work in the background as well, to continue to fill that pipeline full of targets to be discovered by drilling later next year. So going into the carbonatites, the Gifford Creek carbonatite complex, they had Hastings next door. They all thought that the Yin Ironstone or the Yangibana Ironstone complex only extended to the other side of the Lions River Fault. We've come through in the last year and a half, made the Yin Ironstone complex, discovering the other half of that Ironstone complex, the really quality high rare earths. And we also identified what Newmont and other companies have been exploring for this region for the last 30, 40 years have been looking for, and that is the source carbonatites for those ironstone dikes. And the work that we've done recently has extended that to 17 kilometers of strike. You can see some of the drilling that we've commenced over that carbonatite has barely scratched the surface. What's the significance of 17 kilometers in that work? One of the largest carbonatite complexes in the world and the biggest mines is Bayan Obo in China. That is also a 17 kilometer long, 1 to 2 kilometer wide carbonatite intrusion. I'm not saying we have Bayan Obo, but what is encouraging about this is that Bayan Obo contains 3 rare earth deposits. So we have C3 in hand right now, and we have the potential to identify additional rare earth mineralization within that carbonatite complex. The other significant breakthroughs, 17 by 1 kilometer carbonatite complex, carbonatite intrusion, is where do you design the drilling in that area? And one of the big things that we came up with, we're doing a bunch of geophysical orientation surveys this year. What have we learned? And that is we're looking for these areas of deeper residual enrichment. You look at Mount Weld, Arasha, all these carbonatite complexes globally, all the mined mineralization is in that deep weather profile, this karstic texture that accumulates and has secondary mineralization. And what we saw at C3 from the drilling that we did, on the right-hand side, this is how we modeled the regolith, and it had deep pockets of mineralization, which had our thickest and highest grade intercepts from C3. And then on the left, this is an image, we did detailed gravity over that, And that detailed gravity has highlighted where the deeper weathering is. So that's given us a geophysical tool to go out and map over this. That geophysical survey was completed this week. We'll have those results back this week, and we'll be drilling targets along the 17-kilometer long carbonatite complex, looking for something bigger and better than C3 before the end of this year. The Money Intrusion, our first quantum discovery in the making. So first quantum, so we're down here at C3, talking about the rare earths, our gold in here, and then the first quantum joint venture is along the Money Intrusion, sitting up over here. For the last 2 years, we've been working on this. Last year, started this year, we announced some EM conductors. We put a drill hole into it as we finished up the rare earth drilling before we went up to the Kimberley. First drill hole hit massive sulfides. We have the rushed assays back for that. Very high tenor sulfides, very encouraging. First quantum, as they say, they have global eyes on this. They're very excited. We have lots of funding. We'll be drilling up here in the next week or two before the end of the year. We'll be chasing up the rest of this Bukathana section of the Money Intrusion, and also starting to work on Kulabakana. So that work this year will consist of some RC drilling, trying to find the keel position within this intrusion, and providing platforms for deeper diamond tails as required if we don't find the depths of this intrusion. Going into next year, we plan on being out here with First Quantum with an RC and a diamond rig, an IP crew, and downhole EM and surface EM crews. So it's going to be all hands on deck, and a lot of activity being funded by First Quantum as we continue to reassess and drill the entire Money Intrusion, looking for additional nickel copper sulfides. So what can we expect in 2024? I've alluded to what we'll be doing with First Quantum from the start of the year. 2 rigs on site, IP geophysical surveys and EM surveys going for the start of the year. Be very, very busy. We'll also be targeting those gravity lows. We recently received an EIS grant from the government, so to test some of the gravity lows on the carbonatites. So we'll continue to test that, looking for and testing that blue sky potential on the rare earths, niobium, and critical metals. We'll get back up to the Kimberley. We will finish the program that we started this year, and we'll also continue to assess the nickel sulfides. There's some fantastic results out from Buxton and IGO. Not that Buxton's getting much love for it, but no one's getting much love for it in this market. The Dogleg discovery, nickel sulfides, that's about 12 Ks along strike from our tenement boundary. That ruined dolerite position extends into the Yampi project on 2 occasions. So we're looking forward to assessing that nickel sulfide and chasing that up, in addition to continuing to pursue the copper sulfides that we had discovered at Orion in 2021. And in the background, proving up Bresnahan, Central Yilgarn, and keeping that pipeline full of projects. So we're going back next year to who we are as a company. That's boots on the ground, exploration, low impact, high value, low cost exploration. This year, we delivered that indicated resource. We've been hitting that hard. We spent a lot of money at Mangaroon. We delivered a lot of resources, delivered a lot of work. We are going to be going back to testing targets, doing good geology, doing good exploration, the stuff that we love. We're very much looking forward to that. The other things we're going to be looking at, once we get those resources out on the rare earths, we're going to start assessing actively the commercialization processes and opportunities for those rare earths. We've been fending off interest all year until we deliver the resources. Now that we've done that, we know the value of the proposition. We're going to have more fruitful conversations with interested parties. We also have commercialization opportunities on the Metzke's gold resource and other things at Central Yilgarn. So we'll continue to get on boots on the ground, define targets, make our discoveries if we're lucky enough and the drill bit hits the right thing, and look at commercializing the assets to deliver value onto the state. So in summary, we're one of the most active exploration companies out there. We've got one of the best teams to get out there and make the discoveries, to find the targets and get the drilling done. We have a track record of discoveries in multiple commodities across our project portfolios, and we continue to expand and advance our knowledge across those project portfolios. So we look forward to continuing to put our money where our mouth is, boots on ground, money in the ground, and hopefully make those discoveries into next year. Thank you very much.
Well done, Dean Tack. I'm so impressed with all my presenters this week. I have not had to put my finger on the bell once. I am so very, very impressed, and they're great messages too. So where are we going to go now, team? We're going to go looking for copper, and we're going to go overseas to look in copper. We're going to go to Arizona. Who knows why we're going to Arizona for copper? Why Arizona? Oh, hands up the back. Is this correct? Wait a second, I'm getting hand signals from the back and I can't. We're going to go to morning tea. Oh, we're not. Okay, right. Well, I was